What's up, everybody? Your boy, the Show Bullet 8. We are back right now with another stream, and we're going to be talking about something that we somewhat talked about last night, which was the shooting, if you don't know about this, in Uvalde, Texas. Pretty, it's not, it's a fucked up situation. As best as I can put it at this point in time. And it's kind of one of those things where you sometimes wonder if talking about it in a certain capacity is the right way to go about it. I think I'll speak more to that point of it in a little bit. Just waiting to see how many people get on. We've got a couple here right now. This is not going to be a very long stream. I mean, honestly, who knows? Depending on what you guys have to say about it, it could take however long it's going to take. I mean, I figure it most an hour or so. So hopefully, if you're watching this later on YouTube or on Twitch, I do want to hear from you guys. OBS just took a dive on me. Yep. See what happens here. There should be no reason this is happening right now. OBS just took a crap on me again, so that's why it took a little bit of a pause there. I was waiting for it to come back online, which it looks like it has. And actually, it was just Twitch itself that looks like it went down. Okay, everything's back up and running. But we all know that it's been a situation where a lot of these mass shootings and more so even the school shootings have become more and more prominent. In fact, give me a sec. Over the course of the last few years, if we take a look at it, I think somewhere in 2000 and was it 2019, 2020? I want to say it's about 2020 where we ran into the situation of having somewhere within maybe 2019. I apologize. 2019, it was around 400 and 417, 18, within the 420 realm of mass shootings in the US. In 2021, it was 690, 693, I think, to be accurate. In 2022, currently, which we are not even a full 6 months into this year, the number is kind of interesting in the effect that there's a range that's going from about 215 upwards of 248 mass shootings. Now, when you take into account what can be considered a mass shooting, what we're talking about is things that are happening in largely open public spaces. I know that one of them accounted for within the last few days was the shooting that happened in a club that left 5 individuals injured. I don't believe anyone actually died in that one, but there were at least 5 injured. Then, of course, we have about 10, 11 days ago, the mass shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York. Now, as to school shootings themselves, think about this. I believe that the current number that, as far as all of the information that you can take in, again, these numbers will range, and it's such a hard thing to pinpoint an accurate number. But I believe what has been stated for the most part is that the accurate number at this current point in time is 40 shootings in schools as of today in the US, 30 of which are in the K to 12 bracket. That's huge. That's huge. No matter what, either way you look at it. And then to see it in such a manner that it happened yesterday, it's crazy. There's tons and tons of different news, and we are going to take a look at some of the information that's out there right now. There's tons of news being reported on it from every outlet you can possibly, you know, think of. My big issue with it is that a part of the problem, especially in the effect of using the individual's names. I I don't think their name should ever be spoken unless they're sitting in trial. And in this case, that is not an option, which is another slight issue I have, but understand as far as the state of this specific instance. And then, of course, along with that, considering there's so many different news outlets, whether it's the local news in Uvalde, Texas itself, or the news outlets and news sources across the U.S., there's conflicting, data or conflicting information. But what can pretty much be ascertained from all of it is that there were 19 students, young children, second, third, and fourth graders who were killed, and two teachers who were killed in this incident. In this, not just incident, this pointless, this senseless, this absolute disgusting display of humanity. Um, there were, I guess, a few officers that were also injured, and I think that more and more information will come out over the course of the next few days, the next week, so on and so forth. But the question remains, how do you deal with this? And I know we discussed this somewhat last night, and I'll get into what we discussed and why on some level it doesn't really work as to what we discussed. But let's go ahead and take a look at a few of the things that I pulled up, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So this article here, as we can all see, Uvalde school shooter texted a teenage girl, "I'm gonna go shoot up an elementary school before the massacre." Now, if you know anything about this story, first and foremost, the individual, he he was actually 18 years old. He went to the high school there in Uvalde, Texas. He had two assault rifles, but what they said that the attack happened with was an assault rifle, an AR-15 style rifle, as well as possibly a handgun. A lot of this information isn't getting put out at this point, but there's bits and pieces that were pulled yesterday, more stuff that's coming out today. And again, as the police go through the investigation and things of that nature, more and more will come up. Now, on this story alone, and I don't even want to show his name, but I know it's in here. But just before killing 19 children and two teachers in a Texas elementary school, the 18-year-old gunman allegedly texted a girl who lives in Germany about his intentions. One of the things that's being reported is that he was upset because he didn't get to graduate. Like, so that's your reasoning for shooting your grandmother and then going off and killing a bunch of children. Something's wrong there. In his text, it goes into it. He complained about his grandmother being on the phone with AT&T about his phone. He texted the young lady, "It's annoying." And then 6 minutes later, "I just shot my grandma in her head." Seconds after that, he said, "I'm going to go and shoot up an elementary school right now." He had already gone out and obviously purchased the guns. And what a lot of people are going to argue is, how did an 18-year-old go and purchase two AR style weapons, as well as this handgun, which seemingly he had no issue doing after his 18th birthday, because I mean that's what the laws state in the U.S. It goes on to say the girl who lives in Frankfurt had begun chatting with Ramos. I believe she's a 15-year-old girl, and he discussed his plans on visiting Europe, according to videos and text messages. The mother gave permission for her to be interviewed. She also communicated with him via Yubo, played games with him on an app on Plato. I'm sorry. In their conversations, he had spoken about her life in Germany. He looked happy and comfortable talking to me, was what she stated. The texts of the girl are similar to the messages Texas Governor Greg Abbott said Ramos wrote on Facebook. Those I just said his fucking name. Those disturbing writings, the governor said, came as the suspect indeed shot his grandmother, drove to nearby Robb Elementary School, forced his way inside adjoining classrooms, and opened fire at a group of kids. In fact, officers eventually forced their way into the barricaded room, and a Border Patrol officer fatally shot him. Now, Facebook, of course, or Meta at this point, said the gunman's messages were made in private one-to-one texts that were discovered after the shooting. So I'm guessing on Messenger itself. Now, if we look here, this is where the conflicting, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's actually spot on, because 19 children, 2 adults, and then 17 others that were injured in the attack. It's the second deadliest shooting in, well, essentially since Sandy Hook. If you guys don't know what that is, I'd say go ahead and take a look at, the information on that. It was the most deadly school shooting of a K-12 school in nearly a decade now. And like I said, now it's showing here it was at least the 30th shooting at a K-12 school. So again, this goes back to saying that the 30th K-12 school, 40 schools in total within this current year, with approximately 248 mass shootings happening as of today or yesterday. Adding in what happened in Texas. That's a problem. It's a real problem. To make matters worse is considering so much of this information. I mean, we can go to another, article right here, which speaks on the shooting. It covers a lot of the information that was stated in the prior article, and yet another one here going over a lot of the information, as well as speaking about the individuals who were killed in this incident, showing some of the information about them and what their family said about them or friends said about them. And this is one of those things that attacks not only the individuals involved. I mean, look at this. This is a kid, bro. This is a kid right here. These children are innocent. Rifles should not be easily available to all. This is my hometown, a small community of less than 20,000. I never imagined this would happen so easily would happen to us, especially to loved ones. Think about what we're talking about here. We are talking about second, third, and fourth graders, all right, who were at school, going about their day, literally days away. Depending on where you are in the U.S., the children are days away from being on summer break. Time for them to go, get away from school, go out and enjoy the time with their family. Some families are going to be taking summer vacations and just living the lives as children. It's actually crazy how easily guns, even rifles, can be found nowadays. That's 100% true. And the problem with it is that, again, they're not putting out all the information. However, it has been stated that he went and purchased at least two AR-15 style weapons. All right. One of those weapons used during this incident alongside a handgun at the age of 18. Now, as I said earlier, and by the way, the timeline for this, in reading all three of these different articles plus a few other ones and numerous videos, again, the you know differences in them, there are some, but the greater timeline can be put together like this. So if we take into account that he had spoken to the young lady in Germany, gave the information he did, then goes ahead and sends messages to the governor. Okay. He This is directly after he shot his grandmother, who is dead, leaves. Somewhere on the drive, you of course have neighbors who heard the shots. They call it in. The police are not at this point in time looking for him. He crashes his car or his truck. All right. Gets out. As he's getting out. Now, this is another conflicting story, or two different things that happened that may have happened but weren't put together as, one story. These came from two different news outlets, one of which being in Texas. He gets out. The individuals that work at I believe a mortuary were coming to assist him, try and help him. But in the other story, there was also an officer who was working. He works for said school district, which is something we had spoken about last night, where a lot of schools have officers who work for them, or should have at least one officer on campus, on grounds within the vicinity, in order to protect the individuals, the young students that are there, as well as the teachers, the faculty, different things like that. As they go to approach him, he is armored. So again, just the same as in New York, Buffalo, New York, and the shooting that happened 11 days ago. This kid is armored and opens fire. The officer, from what's understood, was injured. He then jumps the fence, starts shooting into the school, and breaks it, like shoots his way in. Okay. There's obviously no security at this point. If we go back to the other story here, it speaks about him barricading himself in the room while, mind you, he is shooting the students, and the teachers who go to try and protect the students are then killed as well. At which point, you then have police, border patrol. I mean, everyone is rushing to the scene. Parents who are getting this information are rushing to the scene. Officer breaks in. I'm sorry, border patrol officer breaks in, shoots him. In the end, the aftermath of all of this, one of the other stories that I ended up picking up on, they actually spoke about the fact that it was such a horrible situation, so much carnage and devastation, that some of the children and possibly even the two teachers could not be identified. Now, whether or not this is 100% fact, the news outlet that actually said this asked of the reporter that was on the scene, is it true that the police are asking for the parents who are rushing there and things like that to give DNA in order to potentially match the individuals? Because at that point in time, no one knew who anyone was. Parents were rushing there. Like, just, if you can imagine this, which for most there's no way to do so, if you are not a parent, if you've never had the responsibility or taken on the responsibility of being a parent to someone, there's a complete, take your the greatest moment in your life that like filled you with so much fear and multiply it at least tenfold, maybe 100-fold even. It's an emptiness. Your mind is going in every which way. No matter what you see in front of you, no matter what is happening, you are willing to rush into the situation because you want to know, did something happen to your child? Give me a second. I really believe that it would be useful to observe those youngsters so that we come to conclusions about their traits and what those school shooters actually have in common in order to come to conclusions about what changes could be made to prevent those incidents. Blacklisted spam warning. Oh, I know what just happened. I will fix that situation right there. I apologize, Vasi, and everyone. Please give me a second. We had an incident last night, which I will speak about in a bit, that kind of caused what may have just happened as far as chat with Vasi. But you're correct. And one of the things that they ended up coming, well, I mean, one of the things that's being assumed in the end after all of this has happened in kind of some form of a correlation was that this individual, he had no intentions of surviving this. He went knowing, barricading himself in, knowing, just the same as a few other of these shooters have done. He went in with the intention of knowing that either A, after he was done, he was going to end himself, or B, he was going to be taken out by the police, which is exactly what happened. One of my biggest problems with some of the video is that afterward, there's a group of 3 officers who come together and dap each other after, taking him out. Now, it can be easily said that maybe it was because of the fact that they just, stopped the incident, so on and so forth. But if it's about actually taking that individual out, I have a small issue with that. And the issue is this: he deserves to suffer for what he did. He deserves to suffer just as greatly as every one of those parents, as every one of their family members, as every one of the loved ones to the teachers, the officers who were injured, the other individuals that were injured, whether it's children or faculty. It doesn't say as far as the 17 that were injured. He deserves to suffer just like every one of their loved ones. And it may sound horrific to say, but I don't find it fair that they have to live with that for the rest of their lives, for the rest of their days. This is something that they will have to live with. And then, of course, we have to look at, you know, were there signs beyond the messages he sent, beyond the chats he was having with this young lady in Frankfurt? It's a situation of maybe she didn't take it seriously. She's 15 years old. Maybe she's trying to help him. Maybe she's thinking he's just venting. Maybe his visit there will actually change, his outlook on whatever is going on in his life. That's all understandable and acceptable in the event that, she, of course, is in a completely different country under completely different guidelines, rules, laws, everything else. Okay. She didn't know. He's living with his grandmother. Not sure how old she was. That information, for some reason, I couldn't find. How much was she looking into the things that he was doing? Of course, he was 18 years old. He's grown at that point. Could she really stop him from doing or really recognize some of the things that he's actually going through? From what it's understood, he hid a lot of it. In fact, I mean, the people who knew him, people who said that they were, friends or acquaintances of his in school, which he was no longer in, said he didn't seem like the type to do something like that, though he had the quiet sensibilities and very lone style of relationships with individuals, which were very few and far in between. But those things don't make an individual a, a killer, a mass murderer. They don't. They are some of the qualities that some of them have. But at the same time, you can find individuals who are very charismatic and open and lively, seemingly. And they are some of the most horrific individuals we've ever known. I can name a few, but there's no necessity to. All of this then comes back to what can be done. And the real problem with it is that it doesn't seem like much. We talked about the schools being possibly more policed. Is it a realistic situation? No, because in fact, police are spread thin as it is, as we spoke of. Is it realistic to believe that every school in the United States could have a police force there? No. And then again, it treats a school like it's a prison, like it's not a safe place to be in the first place. Now, what some would say to that is, and I've heard this argument before, is that if you take a look at the reality of it, the chances of a school shooting happening to your school or in your area or to you is about the same chances of you dying in a plane crash versus a car accident. You would have more of a chance of something happening to you in a car accident than a school shooting or a mass shooting. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's happening. It doesn't take away from the fact that it's happening more and more prominently. It's something that, you know, the answer to is going to be very hard to come to. You have people who are vying for the right to have guns. You have people who are lobbying for, the NRA and other gun rights activists. All of these different things, and then you have the others who are affected by this or who have a sense that, well, you know what? I don't think that it's right that you just own a gun just to own a gun, but that is a part of the US Constitution to have that ability. In fact, if you take a look at gun ownership, here's where things get interesting. So, of all gun owners, approximately 72% of gun owners actually own a handgun. Now, this is of gun owners that own multiple guns. Of that, 62% of them own a rifle of some form. And then another 54% of those, or another 54%, will also own a shotgun. Now, these individuals could own a handgun and a rifle, a handgun and a shotgun, or a handgun, a rifle, and a shotgun. But when it comes to single gun owners, the majority is in the handgun range. 62% own handguns, whereas 22%, I believe, at the time of the demographic study that I had actually taken a look into, 22% of them owned a rifle and 16% owned a shotgun. These are gun owners who own one singular gun. So the overwhelming number of them own handguns. But then looking at the multiple, you have a mixture of. And Twitch just went down again. I had to take a pause there because I just watched the stream freeze for whatever reason. I don't know why. I apologize. So in looking at that, there's a healthy amount of rifles and shotguns and things like that that are out there. I don't know what's happening. For those of you that are on Twitch and that are catching this issue, I do apologize. But when it comes to people saying, well, should an 18-year-old be able to go out and just buy an assault rifle? Honestly, what the hell does an 18-year-old need with an assault rifle? That's a valid question. Unless you're planning on going out and doing doing something heinous. Honestly, two of them, even more so of a fucking question to be asked. And a handgun, okay, I, whatever. But then the question comes into play. Well, an 18-year-old can go into the military. You are absolutely correct. But an 18-year-old, though in the military, still can't drink. That age is 21. Maybe you push the age. Maybe. Hell, for the longest period of time, I think it was the age of 25 until you could actually rent a car. Responsibilities and all. You understand the act of taking on a greater deal of responsibility. And I think that owning a gun or an actual rifle for that matter is of a greater responsibility than what some 18-year-olds can handle. We have to realize the mindset of individuals in that state, especially in the world we live in today. How drastic of a difference is this? How is it possible that in one country, the US, open laws, freedoms abound? I mean, abundances of freedoms, okay? And then a country, take Japan. Yes, Japan. They have freedoms. They have a great deal of freedoms, just the same. Now, granted, it's a different culture. Some of those freedoms are different than you have in the US. But let's think about this here. These children in the US couldn't even go to school without being killed. A great deal of children who go to school in the US cannot go to school without the fear of something like this happening. Japan, an 8-year-old child, 9-year-old child, 10-year-old child at night who has night classes for whatever reason, because this does happen, okay, can go alone, travel from home to school and back. We're talking 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, return home by themselves, okay? No adult accompanying them, on a train, on a bus, or walk it out by themselves. No fear of being taken, snatched, harmed on the greater scale, okay? Think about that. That is a fucking drastic difference. But the real problem is we want to take out the politics of it, and I can completely understand. Don't go fucking political on something like this if you're a politician the day of and try and fight for your right for guns and shit, because a lot of people are going to disagree with you at that very moment, because I'm sorry, it is still fresh. Hell, the day after, but we still see it happen. And the real fact of the matter is this: the only way that anything changes is that it comes from those individuals, which is kind of shitty, because again, when we look at it, some of these individuals are being paid by these groups, these companies, corporations. There has to be some median way. It cannot be that schools are 100% policed in the US. There is not enough of a police force to do so. I understand that. But what has been said, and even by law enforcement themselves, a better means to take a look at the individuals that are purchasing these weapons, that are purchasing guns as a whole. There are signs. There are. A greater deal of times, there are signs. And even if you take it and say, you know what, we raised the age limit, maybe that's even a better decision. I understand there are individuals who are much older who go out and commit these acts. But if we say that the responsibility of an individual to be able to drink alcohol and understand that what their actions, the actions that they take at that point in time, at the age of 21 versus 18, they're an adult at 18. But we still say you still have 3 years before you can really take on that responsibility of taking a drink. Hell, they've pushed the laws of vaping. I believe you have to be 21 and above. Smoking, e-cigarettes and things like that. I don't know if it's on a tobacco or whatever as well, but they push that also. It's essentially saying that at the age of 18, though you are an adult, I'm sorry, you cannot do certain things. Hell, you cannot go into an establishment after a certain time in the evening, though they serve food and alcohol. Once it becomes a bar, you can't go in there. That's in a lot of cities and states and things like that. That's at 9 o'clock at night. The transition happens. Some 10, maybe 11. Okay? But even if you're in there in the earlier point in times of the day, you can't drink. I think that owning a gun, especially an assault rifle, holds a greater deal more responsibility than having a drink. Yes, you can argue that having a drink impairs cognitive abilities, makes people go out and do idiotic, asinine things. We see individuals who drink and drive, so on and so forth. But owning a gun, at that very moment that you purchase it, if you already have any kind of instability or no real understanding of what responsibility is because you just crossed into the threshold of adulthood, and you figure, say you're driving down the fucking street. We've seen road rage incidents where a motherfucker just pulls their gun. On the same kind of level, drinking and driving, you potentially go out and hurt someone, but that age of consent to do so is 21. A handgun, an AR, 18. There's something wrong, man. There really is. And again, you can go back to the military situation and say, oh, you can go in at the age of 18 and you are, of course, well, guess what? There's a great deal of responsibility that's held on those individuals that are in the military. It's not like you're just a free range citizen who has, or excuse me in saying this, because I don't want to say that people just have no discipline, but there's a different sense of discipline, honor, and duty that is held for an individual in the military who is handling a handgun or an AR style rifle or a shotgun than what is held for an individual that is 18 years old out on the streets. The argument kind of doesn't stand. Give me a second. I need to check something really quick. And what makes this okay. The other problem I have with this, as I said, is the fact that when we give power to the individual's names and allow them to to report on these types of things, say their names constantly, it becomes a thing where you kind of wonder, are we Giving them that 15 minutes of fame, is that what's happening? Because how is it that on a constant basis these things are happening so close to one another? The information has to be put out there. The incidents have to be spoken of, but to repeatedly say individuals' names and put them in the limelight, it kind of just makes you wonder what's the responsibility of individual news outlets and so on and so forth. I find that a lot of streamers and things, they tend to not say the individuals' names. If I've taken a look at some of the stuff that I've seen, they really don't want to, because of the fact that you feel some sense of not liability but guilt. Because what if by chance one of the viewers is one of the family members? What if by chance some other individual who thinks that, oh my God, they did something that I really want to do or whatever, and now if someone else is saying their name, it's giving them recognition. I can get that form of recognition. If you all think that I'm overreaching with that statement there, you would be absolutely fucking wrong, because you cannot understand the psychosis of individuals who live in that realm of disillusion. You just can't, you can't comprehend. Some people will enact some of the most heinous acts just for what we consider nowadays clout or 15 minutes of fame. It's nuts. And then worse still is, what if the wrong information is being put out there? Now, going into what I'm going to show you right now, this is kind of on that stance. Now, I think this was a bit of a, I want to say this was not someone just trying to cause a scene or anything, but there was an actual threat. Let me show you this real quick. I ended up in this group in Arizona, in Tucson, Arizona, in fact, where I lived. And this was something that went out. Now it's 4 hours ago. What's up, Tucson? Got a student text message from Pima East campus that a shooter is on site. And after this had originally been sent out, oh, you can't see my, okay. Well, after it had been sent out, there, you can see this. The person is in custody. The threat is over. This is literally the day after the elementary school shooting. There's no additional information because someone put any details yet. No additional details. Guns are not allowed on campus, so you don't have to do anything with it. Just having it can get you arrested. Another individual said that there was a man with a knife pulled on the bus driver at East Campus. It was a student. No matter what, the student was taken into custody. Okay, the person, or not necessarily student. I apologize, because see, my words just got jumbled. I'm thinking about school and students and everything else. But the person is in custody. It doesn't say if it's an actual student or if it was just some individual, some random individual. Point being here is that this got construed in so many different ways, and there's still currently no information out there to actually say fully what this was all about. I ended up in this group and don't know how I ended up in this group, because I've never signed up for said group on Twitter. But what I will say is that that group, I found so much different information. Whether it was the fact that just yesterday an individual was found dead, literally right around the corner from where one of my closest friends works, in the area that I used to work in, things of that nature. These types of things allow for information to be disseminated in a much greater fashion, to actually be put out there in a much greater fashion. Okay. Maybe it's the responsibility of individuals who are seeing these these people who are having these issues, or who who are leaving their house armored with weapons that you saw outside before they got in their vehicle, to get the word out there much quicker. When someone puts this type of stuff out there on social media, it makes you wonder, are they being serious or not? And if you don't take them serious, then it becomes a problem of, well, when they enacted the violence, are you on some level responsible? Do you take on that weight? Granted, it is not your responsibility to, I guess, police every individual. It's unfair to do so. In fact, I mean, I've always been for the idea that we all should know that what we do have consequences as an individual. But if someone said to you, I'm going to go and shoot up a school. Now, granted, again, this young lady is all the way in Frankfurt, Germany, is whatever, doesn't understand U.S. laws, customs, maybe, doesn't understand how to contact. Fine. But if this happened in your town, in your city, in your state, maybe it should be a thing where you're like, okay, that's a red flag, and boop, 911, we got a problem. Maybe. And in this case, obviously, that was put out, and they actually, there's a section where I went farther deeper into those tweets, and I saw where they said, listen, do not go, if you are not on campus, do not go near the campus at this current time. So it kind of notified a broader, I mean, hell, it's a perfect use of technology and social media. It is a perfect use of it right there. Hey, don't go in this area. Something's going on. We know what just happened yesterday. Be weary, leery, careful, however you want to put it. Stay the fuck away. Maybe that works. But as far as controlling the gun issues, as far as trying to get these mass shootings and these school shootings under control, there has to be some form of real open dialogue about it. Because I swear to you, this shit, as I said, we've seen how it's grown over the last 3 years. And currently, we're at 248 mass shootings before the beginning of the 6th month of this year. I mean, average that out. Where does it look like we're going? 6 more months to go. Simple math. 248 plus 248, or 248 times 2. We get our number. Okay? Anybody? Okay. But then if you have an incremental growth in between that time, you're potentially reaching the numbers that you hit the year prior, which was over 600. And that number of mass shootings, and then if we take the number of school grounds that have been, attacked this year, which we said 30 K through 12, 40 in total, we're looking at a potential number of times 2 again by the end of the year. Of course, correction, considering that, school's out at this point in time, but it does start back up. I mean, hell, if you did that in 5 months, you potentially have the ability to do it again in another 5 months, from August or so until the end of the year. No matter what, the numbers aren't good. No matter what, the whole incident, like, these acts are terrible. If you're not going to push, which you cannot push, taking away guns, a better control mechanism put into place for those people who are purchasing them, especially especially AR style rifles, semi automatic weapons, and again, especially for individuals under a specific age group. Fuck, raise it to 25. Do it. Do it. It's better than 18. Raise it to 21, maybe. It's better than 18. But really, I think that most Americans, and I could be wrong on this, I would think that most Americans would agree more so with the raising of the age limit to 21 or 25 versus completely trying to control or take away the rights of gun owners. I could be wrong. I want to know what you guys think about this. I mean, this is so serious and it's so disgusting on a level that I can't express. I mean, the politics of it taken out with I actually saw what the president had to say about it, and it was interesting. Of course, in the end, he ended up getting into the political end of it, but so did a lot of other individuals. You know, right after this incident happened yesterday, what he said, however, from the standpoint of a parent, was very real. Because if what you guys may not know, or some of you may not know about him, is that he lost a son many years ago and his wife, and then lost another son more recently, twice over, lost children. And I think on a level that connected with a lot of Americans who, have children or raise children, and especially the parents there. More than anything, at this point in time, versus all of these individuals who want to go on this political tirade of no, we can't get rid of guns, or we need to control guns, or like whatever the case may be, it has to be taken into account what has happened to these families, to these individuals, to their loved ones. And it has to be said that we have a fucking problem. We should be, if you are of the religious stance, pray for the families, help them get through this, help the community heal from it. But it also has to be looked at some point in time and say, listen, taking out all our personal feelings, there's a logical conclusion that we can come to together. There's always a fucking logical conclusion to come to, but we live in a world where our emotions rule us, especially in a country where everyone thinks they're right. In a country where we have the freedoms that we do. Are they bad? No. On the greater scale, they're great. On the greater scale, it's right because of the fact that, I mean, we're all born, we're all the same, but some of those freedoms very much so do get abused, taken advantage of, taken to extremes, and then we run into these situations. And so the reason why rules and guidelines were put in, and we don't have one, just went down again, you guys. I had to stop.